Joy News Prime.
Hello, good evening. It's 41 days to the general elections here in Ghana, and this is Joy News Prime, your most comprehensive 2-hour news coverage. And coming up, Ghana's major labor unions are planning a labor shutdown mid-November over what they say is government's failure to transfer their 5% Tier 2 monthly deduction into the account of their own scheme. Chairperson of the Electoral Commission assures of transparent and credible elections in December following what she describes as reforms and mechanisms introduced to give a credible outcome while promising a release of register to parties next week.
Parties by Friday are going to get a list of all the polling stations in every region. The list would also be on the website of the Electoral Commission so that there's a higher level of transparency.
Also, Right to Information Bill, which has been in Parliament for more than a decade, to be finally passed under a certificate of urgency.
And ahead in business, Ghana improves its attractiveness of doing business globally as World Bank's Ease of Doing Business report indicates a marginal progress in its ranking.
We'll also bring you a report on some abandoned or neglected projects in some municipalities and districts of the Bono Ahafo region. The news is available on DSTV, GoTV and on ABN across Europe. Now, Ghana's major labor unions are planning a labor shutdown next month over what they say is government's failure to transfer their 5% Tier 2 monthly deduction into the account of their own scheme. The labor unions, which accuse government of failing to implement a High Court ruling directing the state to transfer the monies, say they will go ahead with a strike on November 15 if government fails to address their concerns.
The 12 labor unions include the Ghana Medical Association, NAGRAT, CLOSAG, TEU and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers embarked on strike over the same issue in October 2014. Government, however, dragged the unions to court. But both parties later agreed on an out-of-court settlement, which was later accepted by the High Court. By the ruling, effective April 1, 2016, government is supposed to transfer 5% Tier 2 monthly deduction directly to custodian banks and also ensure that the National Pension Regulatory Authority transfer funds currently being held in the Temporary Pension Fund account at the Bank of Ghana. The unions say government is yet to implement any of the court's decision. Chairman of the unions, Isaac Bampo Ado, said strike is the only action to drive home their demand.
As the second tier operation scheme is by law a defined contribution scheme, it is the yield on investment over time that will determine the level of the lump sum payout. Thus, the delay in transfer of funds to the various schemes for almost 7 years is going to affect adversely the level of lump sum or gratuity a retired officer is likely to receive under the second tier. The forum would wish to state that if by 15th November 2016, government has not complied with its obligation under the settlement judgment, we will have no option than to embark on a massive nationwide industrial.
The forum also cast doubt over how much is currently being contained in the Temporary Pension Fund account at the Bank of Ghana. According to the unions, government is yet to come clear with specific figure.
We are saying that the account must be properly audited. It is only when the independent arbiter, that is the auditor, comes in to authenticate figures that all of us can agree that this is the real figure that must be accepted. So we have always stated that MPRA, as the authority that oversees this pension scheme, must make sure that the funds are properly audited, and then unions or labor is properly informed that this is what is in the Temporary Pension Fund account. There and then that everybody can accept that this is the true position of the fund. Other than that, whatever somebody comes to say is something that the person is saying out of his own thinking until the auditors come out with a report, it becomes very difficult for us to accept such figures.
So how does government intend to avert this planned strike by the labor unions? We are joined on the line by Employment and Labor Relations Minister Haruna Iddrisu. Many thanks for your time, sir. Hello, good evening, sir.
Hello, good evening, and my regards to you and your esteemed listeners.
Good. Now, the labor unions say you have failed to implement a court order for government to transfer their deductions directly to custodian banks. This order was given as far back as April of this year. So why haven't you carried it out?
Respectively, my mandate is not a finance mandate, even though I appreciate the fact that I exercise oversight over the National Pension Regulatory Authority. And there was a standing problem far back 2014 in the management of the second-tier pension related to the implementation of the reforms in the pension sector and to allow for the operation of the three-tie pension scheme. And the 12 unions constituting themselves in a forum, you recall, even had to embark on a major strike action around August 2014. The parties then agreed to settle the matter amicably out of court. I do admit and accept that there are outstanding issues with the implementation, but we've come very, very far and very close to a comprehensive settlement. Part of the problem was them, that is, I'm referring to the forum, we appoint jointly custodians, fund managers, and scheme administrators. That have been done. They work very well with the National Pension Regulatory Authority. They have accordingly referred the and I have conveyed the appropriate instructions to the appropriate institutions, the Ministry of Finance, and to the Contract Accountant General. Let me, however, assure them and assure the public that government will not do anything to jeopardize the future income security and retirement security of any worker. Deductions are done monthly by the Controller and Accountant General. I have referred the matter to the Controller. I'm aware that barely 2 weeks ago, the leaders of the forum, including CLOSAC, met with the Controller, with the NPRA, to resolve those issues. What the Controller is doing with them now is to separate the specific payment that will go to members of the forum from the general pension deduction for every other public sector worker that is being done. So it's like in progress. I do not see why they should be issuing a threat. They were in my office for us to discuss the matter. It was subsequent to my meeting with them that I wrote to the Minister of Finance and to the Controller. I believe that the NPRA is on top of the issue and will get the matters resolved. So whatever it is, the timeline they are given is adequate enough for us to engage and a common resolution to the matter. So well, they are aware that we are working at it.
Well, it is quite interesting that you say that they are aware that you are working on addressing their concerns, because they have actually given a November 15 ultimatum. When you say that some progress has been made with respect to this matter, what exactly are you saying? What specifically have you done?
But not just progress, enormous progress. Remember that in 2014, they were not even prepared to sit down with government to dialogue with government. Now we are established. All the schemes are functional and operational. The NPRA needed to fine-tune all the representations they submitted to them in respect of fund manager, custodian, and scheme administrator. We have passed that stage. Now is left with the final stage, which is to make direct payment of transfer into the custodians who are appointed. And I assure you that that will be done.
All right, many thanks. And that is the Employment and Labour Relations Minister Haruna Iddrisu there, saying that government is taking steps to address the concerns of the labour unions, the 12 labour unions, which have threatened, to withdraw their services by November 15th. Now, the much-awaited right to information bill, which has been in Parliament for more than a decade, will now be passed under a certificate of urgency. The bill, withdrawn and relayed last week with 32 minor amendments, aims to empower citizens to hold public institutions accountable for their actions and inactions to ensure transparency in governance.
The new bill extends the scope of information to be accessed to the private sector, particularly if the disclosure is in the public interest. Chairman of the Constitutional and Legal Committee of Parliament, Magnus Amoate, says the bill will also grant subjects of stolen skins rights to access information relating to income and other resources received by the stolen skin.
Mr. Speaker, it is to the credit of this House that at long last, and after many years of deliberations to and fro, this bill is going to see the light of the day if it is passed by this House. Accordingly, I urge all members to rise up to the occasion and pass this bill. Mr. Speaker, the bill may not be the best, but at least for now, it is the best. It guarantees right to information without undue hindrance, in accordance with the constitutional provisions of 1992. The Speaker, this committee also sought that it was not in the interest of the House to bring in matters affecting chieftains. Accordingly, the previous paragraphs that affected the institution of chieftains, that ought to make this bill cover aspects of the
Member of Parliament for Efiduase Asokore, Frank Ajin, called for speedy passage of the bill.
Although there's a need for us to have access to right information, we must ensure that the rights of individuals and the state are not infringed upon. So I think it's not. Another problem that was encountered when we were considering the bill was that, in fact, there were complaints about the cost involved in accessing information in the country, as far as this bill goes. But I think that has been taken care of. Particularly, we notice that indigent persons it has been provided that indigent persons, maybe the costs as far as they are concerned will be waived. But one great challenge that we are going to face in this country is that record keeping in this system is very bad. And until the records are properly kept and made available, then the bill itself will be of no consequence. So I want to appeal that the authorities or the ministry department agencies that are supposed to keep their records, in the private organizations, must ensure that their records are properly kept.
So what has changed in the new bill, and what is the commitment of government to ensure its passage?
Well, let's hear from the Right to Information Coalition on what they make of the new development. And a member of the coalition, Mina Mensah, joins us on the line. So, Mina, as you heard there, the bill was withdrawn from Parliament. It has been reviewed. It's gone back to the House. What is the content of the bill in its existing form right now? How much contribution did the coalition make to this new reviewed bill?
Hello.
Good evening, Mina. If you heard me...
I can't hear much of what you are saying, and I did not hear anything from what went on in Parliament.
Very well. Let's take it again. I was saying that the Right to Information Bill, Parliament says, will now be passed under a certificate of urgency. What it is that there were concerns about the delay in the passage of the bill. As you may be aware, the bill was withdrawn and amended. I am asking that, have you seen the bill in its current form as amended?
Yes, we've seen a copy of the bill as amended. And what I can say is that it contains all the amendments that were proposed by the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. So I think that it's a good start, and it's a good thing for the Council.
So, I mean, how different is this bill from, when it was earlier presented to the House, because the argument then was that it could not be passed early because there were so many, I think about 1,000 amendments to be made to the bill. How different is this new bill?
This bill is different, and I'd like to correct that impression that there were 1,000 amendments. That's totally untrue. There were a lot of amendments, but they were definitely 1,000. But then this, that is the Right Information Bill 2018, contains all the amendments that the committee proposed to make to the Green Bill. That is, the bill which was under consideration. There was a report that contained amendments. Those amendments which were in the report have been incorporated into the bill, making it one document. So it's different, totally different from or significantly different from the 2013 bill that was laid in Parliament.
And are you confident that finally this bill will see the light of the day and be passed? Because it has been in the House for, as you heard, 10 years, 10 long years.
We are hopeful that it will be passed because it was laid, it was withdrawn and relayed, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday or Tuesday.
Right.
And then the report was laid yesterday, and today they've done the second reading. So it's going quite quickly, very fast. And so if the pace is kept, then I believe that we are going to have the law very soon. So we are very, very hopeful as a colleague.
Okay, so very finally, a lot of expectation from especially the media and people who seek information from public institutions. There's a lot of expectation that this bill will allow them access to information, particularly in public institutions. Will it offer us that?
Yes, it will. But then we would have to make the effort to activate and put it in practice. Because if you don't go and request for the information, then you don't get it. But if people start using it, going to request for information, then obviously because the law requires that you are giving information within a certain stipulated time frame, then you can benefit from that information. And then there's clear guidelines as to how to deny people information and the type of information that ought to be denied. So I think that this is a very, very progressive bill, and people if it is passed and people decide to use it.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. That was Meena Mensah, and she's a member of the Right to Information Coalition. Well, staying in Parliament because the amended Presidential Transition Bill has been passed. It gives power to the Administrator General to evict by court order outgoing presidents and his vice who overstay in the official bungalows 1 week after the swearing in of a new president. The chairman of the Legal and Constitutional Committee, Magnus Amoatey, explains.
Mr. Speaker, like the 1992 Constitution, which is not the best, but at least it has served a very good purpose. It has brought sanity into the body politic of this country. It has promoted governance, and even though there are so many requests for amendment or whatever to the Constitution, yet the Constitution has stood the test of time. Mr. Speaker, I believe sincerely that this bill will be a feather in the cap of good governance, and I think it will stand the test of time. And therefore, in supporting the bill, I go further to urge this House to make sure that the bill is passed. I urge all members to rise to the occasion and get this bill passed. Mr. Speaker, I'm done.
Meanwhile, member of the Finance Committee, Alexander Fenyumarkin, has filed an urgent question demanding the Trade and Industry Minister tell the House steps being taken to protect the textile and cement manufacturing sectors. According to him, there's so much trade unfairness in the sector. Listen.
I filed an urgent question asking the Minister of Trade and Industry steps being taken to protect the textile and the cement manufacturing sectors, given the concerns raised by local manufacturers against unfair trade practices. We are aware that the textile sector has virtually collapsed because of cheap Chinese imports. We've not heard of any policy measures being put in place to ensure that our local manufacturers are assisted to grow their business. We know that local manufacturing creates employment and helps grow the economy. So if we hear and people will invest and government will not take any step to support the local manufacturers, then obviously there's no such incentive to engage in manufacturing in this country. There will be no opportunity for job creation. Therefore, there is a need for the minister to treat it as an urgent matter to address the House on what steps are there for the ministry to address these concerns. Then the second major one is the cement manufacturers. We've read in the dailies, we've heard on the airwaves, there are serious concerns on other importation by Chinese importers and from Dangote. The issue is that although we have ECOWAS trade liberalization that allows free movement of goods and persons, but if you go to Nigeria, Dangote is receiving incentives. It's getting 30% export grants.
And that's Alex Afenyo-Markin. He's a member of Parliament's Finance Committee. We're taking a short break now. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. The Electoral Commission is assuring Ghanaians of transparent and credible elections in December. Chairperson Charlotte Osei is convinced reforms and mechanisms introduced in the electoral system with support from stakeholders will give citizens a credible outcome. She told the Ashanti Regional House of Chiefs results of the election will be accepted by all despite suspicions over credibility of the voters' register.
Charlotte Osei says the Commission has worked with the judiciary, political parties and other stakeholders to address concerns about the electoral roll. She cites implementation of 27 out of 29 recommendations of the Commission's Reform Committee. The Commission is also introducing more biometric verification centers to enable each station have 2.
The political parties by Friday are going to get a list of all the polling stations in every region. The list would also be on the website of the Electoral Commission so that there's a higher level of transparency and everyone knows where the polling stations are. We're also sharing the polling station lists with the security agencies ahead of time. The political parties would get, they should have had it by now, but we're having a few technical challenges. But at least by next week, all of them who have brought their hard drives would have a list of the final voters register. As you're aware, Nana, there's been a lot of concerns about the register. We've worked with the political parties, we've worked with the judiciary, we've worked through the exhibition process, we've cleaned up the register, we have deleted the names of people who registered with NHIS numbers, and those who wanted, about 29,000 of them took the opportunity to re-register. We have gone through the challenges and the objections to names on the register. We have received the final rulings from the magistrates and the district review officers, and so the register has now been finalized. We have implemented all the decisions, and we're in a good place, and so they will have the register at the end of this week.
Meanwhile, flag bearer of the All People's Congress, Hassan Ayariga, is blaming the National Commission for Civic Education for his disqualification from this year's polls. Mr. Ayariga said this after an Accra High Court Wednesday adjourned hearing on a legal suit filed against the EC by the APC flag bearer challenging his disqualification. Joseph Akable has more.
APC flag bearer in his suit wants the court to rule that the EC's decision to disqualify the party denied the APC an opportunity to fill the presidential candidate for this year's polls. He also wants the court to quash the EC's decision to reject his form, as well as order the EC to accept his nomination form. Wednesday's hearing commenced with presiding judge Barbara Tetechawi announcing that she had on her own granted an abridgment of time motion that will ensure that the matter is heard at an early date. The judge also directed that the lawyers for both sides present their written arguments to the court by Friday, October 28, and make oral arguments in court on Monday, October 31. Hassan Ayaga, speaking to pressmen after proceedings, said the failure of the NCCE to educate Ghanaians about their duties led to subscribers endorsing more than one form.
Given the doubt or given the opportunity that whatever the Electoral Commission said was true, I am coming from PNC, and there are members of the PNC that have moved from the PNC to join me in the APC. Ignorantly, some of them could make those common mistakes. But it is the duty of the NCCE to have educated the people on how to vote and how to endorse or how to subscribe. So for us, that fault does not lie on political parties, but lies with the NCCE boss, which was formerly the Madame Charlotte Osei was the former boss of the NCCE. Today, she is the EC boss. So if those common mistakes are happening, then it means that as a former NCCE boss, you didn't do the good job. Because if you had done a good job, I don't think we'll have this kind of common errors coming from the voter.
And that was APC flag bearer Hassan Ayaraga there. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with business news. You're welcome back. And political scientists are divided on the state of political party campaigns 41 days to the elections, while some describe as suspicious attempts by political parties to derail gains made in Ghana's democratic process with the late release of their manifestos. Others believe the MPP's manifesto policies offer better alternative for economic prosperity if the party is able to achieve them. These were views from a roundtable conference on the 2016 elections in Accra.
With 41 days to the general elections, political parties have intensified campaign activities across the country to woo Ghanaian voters with their policies. However, while they are at it, stakeholders are raising concerns over the conduct of these campaigns, with some describing the late release of the manifestos as an attempt to prevent any serious analysis of the content. Political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Professor Ransford Jampo, believes the late release of the manifestos amounts to acts that relapse Ghana's democratic advancement.
I see if we have campaign addressing these issues, then manifestos addressing these issues, the manifestos should come on time so that we can all discuss. But beginning from the 2016 election, I see a surreptitious attempt to relapse Ghana's democratic advancement and the quest to promote issues-based politics or elections. Why do I say so? This is the first time that we are having the two leading political parties presenting their manifestos less than 3 months to election. And so how do we digest, how do we read, how do we understand, and how do we digest what they have said to be able to hold them accountable, to them?
Professor Jampo also lamented the absence of serious platforms for presidential aspirants to debate ideas.
There is now also no serious platform to debate some of these manifestos. Now, somebody is running away from presidential debate. Another, at one point he said, I won't do it. At another point he said, I will do it. The other person is saying, I don't know whether I'll do it or I won't do it. And it is not during party rallies that you can critically discuss manifesto provisions. It is during important and credible platforms like presidential debate, that people will be subjected to strict proof of whatever they say, that we can have a healthy contest of ideas.
Dr. Bosman Asare of the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana, on the other hand, thinks the NPP's policies heading into the elections are ambitious, but if they can be achieved, Ghana would get to the promised land of economic prosperity.
A careful look at the political platforms of the two parties suggests that the NPP one is very, very ambitious. If they can do it, Ghana will get to the promised land of economic prosperity. I think one unique thing about the NPP platform is that it encourages the private sector, thereby limiting the state's role in the economy.
Dr. Bosman Asare is also predicting Ghana is likely to have a divided government if the NPP wins the elections and the NDC wins majority of seats in parliament.
I would say this is going to be an interesting election. Ghana will likely have a divided government for the first time if the NPP wins the presidency and the NDC wins majority of the seats in parliament. The reverse is also possible. The apparent absence of ticket splitting, or what we call in Ghana skirt and blouse, means that this scenario is unlikely. But 28 taught us that everything is possible in Ghana's election.
The event was aimed at exploring key campaign issues of interest to Ghanaian voters, different political parties and their platforms, and the role of gender in the 2016 elections.
Now, the New Patriotic Party believes it has the solution to Ghana's power challenges. For 3 years, the country suffered severe power crisis, which has since stabilized. Although the government assures that the power situation is getting better, the NPP insists the current situation is unsustainable. Joy News' Maxwell Agbagba has been speaking to policy advisor for the party about how they intend to tackle what they call a catastrophe.
We've looked at the problems and we've recommended a number of solutions in our manifesto. The first is to make sure that the sector is competently led, both from the regulatory, from the ministerial, and from the sector participants, i.e. ECG, GridCo, and the power producer, generation capacity transfer. We have to make sure that there is a competent leadership in all places. The second thing is to tackle the financial crisis that has been imposed on the sector. It's a merry-go-round. Why is it a merry-go-round? Government owes ECG. Therefore, ECG cannot pay the power transmitter, which is GridCo. GridCo cannot pay the power generators, VRA, and the independent power producers. And because they have not been paid, they cannot pay for crude oil supplies. So the fundamental nexus to this problem is government's inability to pay. Now, if government paid all its bills, right, this debt, merry-go-round debt, wouldn't exist. Procurement of assets in the power sector. How is it that our next door neighbor, same geography and all, they produce power at 9 cents a kilowatt hour, and we produce power from between 14 and 19 cents a kilowatt hour? It is an indication of an inefficiency. Another thing we intend to do is introduce an energy mix that is more oriented towards renewables, because the renewables is the future. Why is it that all government buildings and facilities cannot be put on solar panel so that we take it off the national grid and so that the electricity bills of government comes down?
Now, police have not leveled any charges against founder and leader of the Glorious Word Ministry International, Reverend Owusu Bempah. That's according to his lawyer, Yao Wabenyasamwa, after the man of God was interrogated by the Criminal Investigations Department of the Police Service earlier Wednesday. Reverend Owusu Bempah had honored an invitation by the police after he had prophesied that the NPP flag bearer Nana Akufo-Addo may be assassinated and called on the police to step up protection for him.
Some supporters and church members of Reverend Owusu Bempah massed up at the police headquarters in support of the popular prophet after he was invited by the police following a prophecy about the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. But Reverend Bempah believes the encounter will be fruitless because the prophecy is the outcome of a spiritual encounter, and since he will be engaging the police on the physical level, his explanations might not make sense. But while he explained himself to the police, his supporters and church members gathered outside the police headquarters asking for his release. According to them, they don't see the need for the invite, while some claim they were being assaulted by the police.
We are not going until they release him to us. When TB Joshua prophesied that there was going to be danger in the country, the police did not invite him. But when Owusu Bempah prophesied that there was a plot against Nana Addo, we saw it when they threw the stone against him. When NDC was going to Cape Coast for their rally, he prophesied that there was going to be an accident, but he wasn't invited.
Me papa no Owusu Bempah, me godfather, me wofa, me nana, my uncle, me mame, me bibia no.
He's my godfather, uncle. In fact, he's my everything.
Being
involved the police in spiritual matters, we were here when Obinim said he can rig the elections for any party. Did they call him to answer? They have gone to call the police to beat us up. After the questioning, Reverend Owusu Bempah's lawyer, Yaobabin Asamoah, briefed the media.
Dr. Isaac Owusu Bempah was invited by the police to give them some advice on how to proceed on some of the revelations he's been having. We've interacted. He has proffered what advice he can give, and now we are on our way back home. He is safe, he is sound, and nothing has happened to him. As we speak now, Apostle Dr. Isaac Owusu Bempah is a totally free man. He was never under arrest. This was a totally friendly visit, and we are happy it's over. We are now on our way home.
Well, meanwhile, Director General of Police Operations, COP Christian Tete Yohunu, is warning prophets across the country to keep their prophecies and predictions to themselves in order to preserve the peace in the December polls.
The CID Director General handling issues of this nature, they will handle him accordingly, and then I think it will be in the interest of all. We want the general public to advise them, please, at this particular time that we are all heading towards election, some 40 days to elections, let us keep ourselves calm. Let us join hands together. This is not the first time we have gone through elections. Let us go through this election successfully to keep all their predictions, their prophecies to themselves.
So that is the Director General of Police Operations, COP Tete Yohunu there. We're taking a break. We'll be back with entertainment news.